Good morning. Oh, yeah, here we are again. So, the other day I was walking, and I walk at different times of the day for different reasons. And I was on this walk that I do in a kind of spirit of exercise because I've still got a part of myself that thrives in intensity, in vigorousness. And so, at the same time, I'm on this healing journey. I'll get back to that again later. And part of that healing journey is a lot of physical pain and physical injury again, I'm going to talk about a little later, I think. I've been talking a lot about it, but the idea that I'm walking for exercise, my younger self would just have no respect for me. Insane maniac that I was. And insane, I mean, in a very serious way, because I was very blocked and stuck and unable to, break through that hard shell of shame and humiliation and negativeness and wrongness. So, I was insane in a lot of ways, most ways. Though actually, I was insane in one way, and that flourished into a wasteland of many ways. So anyway, I've been walking for exercise these days, but it's increasing in intensity, which pleases me. And so I was out walking a couple of days ago, and ahead of me, because I've sort of described it in like when I'm walking, I'm kind of like passively scanning the whole environment. I think that's just the way I am. I'm always aware of what's going on around me, and so I'm walking, and I pass people. It's getting to be spring. It gets sunny and it's lovely. There's more and more people about, but this is a quiet day. There wasn't really a lot of people around, and so I'm walking, and up ahead, I see a couple of figures. And by see, I mean acknowledge them. I'm not looking at them specifically. I just see them, and it's two young men, and so I sort of cast an eye there, and I see that they've got black covered books in their hands, and they've got their white collared shirts and ties and trousers on. And you just, I don't know, clean cut young men with little books in their hands, little black covered books in their hands, and they got their Sunday best on. It's like, uh-oh, you know what's coming. And so I'm walking up, and I'm like, so in this moment now, I've seen them. I've identified them. These are young Christians, of course. By the description what I'm talking about. These are like young Jehovah's Witnesses lads or something. And I'm like, my initial response, which is my knee-jerk reaction, is to be like, oh, God, no. I resist and I reject. This is the unconscious response that I'm working my best at unhooking, Why am I going to bring unpleasantness here? I look at them, I'm like, oh, so unpleasant. Really? Is it really? So I try to breathe and relax. And of course, as they approach me, they come right to me, Oh, and they've got little name tags on, right? So it's like these are the little Christian soldiers, right? These are the crusaders of their ideology, of course. And there's this one young white lad with blonde hair, and one young Asian lad. I thought maybe he's Korean, but not sure for sure. And the young white lad is the leader, and the little Asian guy is his wingman, right? So he comes up to me and he's very bold. He's like, "Oh, good morning. Do you have a moment?" And I was like, "Okay." So I was like, sure. And he's like, and then I look down and I'm like, I don't have any time for your Christian ideology, but if you want to talk about Jesus, I can talk to you about love. And he's like, okay. And this is generally my approach with the Christians. My approach with the Christians is to just don't talk to me about the Bible. Don't talk to me about any of the nonsense that's in your mind. But if you want to talk about Jesus and about love, this is an in for me, because loving, healing, evolving, dreaming for me, it allies me with anyone who is into the devotional path, right? And so I just engaged with my being, and And I allowed my own divineness and grace to just be in that space there, the three of us. And it turned out to be a good topic, because at the end of the day, these are just boys. They're just boys who are being indoctrinated. And yet what happened was exactly what they needed. An older man who's just talking about the devotional path. They had nothing to say. They're boys. They don't have anything to say. And so what it was an opportunity for me to share what being loving is, and I talked about the devotional path. I talked to them about music, and then when I talk about music, this guy's I played the trumpet, and we talked about flow state, and he liked that, and the other guy was very quiet, and I said, what about you? And he's like, I played the clarinet, and I'm like, what does need to be music? It's a whatever makes your heart sing, and he looked very nervous and unsure of what to say to me, right? And so we had a long moment of just talking about the devotional path, and then we shook hands, and away they went, and I realize that that is. I mean, I've mentioned to you a couple of times when I encounter people, like I'm really seeking to spread the joy. You know what I mean? And it's not doctrinal. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that I have that delights me to share. It delights me. I am in a state of delight. And I want to share it. And if someone wants to come and interact with me, they're going to get it. So that was a lot of fun. And for me, it was a learning moment. Because again, dealing with the Christians is like, it can be a real pain in the ass. But why? Why? Because you get all entangled in their ideology, right? And they're trying to force an ideology on you. But I suppose because I'm a fighter, I'm like, I'll engage, but I'm not fighting to dominate. I'm being present in the measure that I need to be present, or I am present in the measure that Spirit seems to allow me to be in that moment, and then I'm allowed to communicate to the extent that there is a range to talk about, and most Christians do have a small range of communication with they're able to actually listen and communicate through, which is the devotional path, which is being loving, because when I started talking to them about, I'm not interested in your Christian ideology, but if you want to talk about love, right, they began questioning me. Well, the leader did. He's like, well, okay, well, what do you do then, right? Because he was suspicious of me at first, right? He thought he was going to get me into a dialogue where I'd be like, I don't know, I'm so despairing, please tell me about the Bible, I need your ideology. Well, what he meant instead was someone who walks the devotional path, and at the end of the day, I had a lot to share with him that was of value, because at the end of the day, these indoctrinated young Christian soldiers, they don't know anything about loving, really. They want to, like everyone does, and maybe through their parents or who knows what, maybe some other sharp-dressed, young proselytizers and Christian soldiers got a hold of them and started to indoctrinate them. Whatever it might have been, in that moment, it was up to me to vibrate at the highest vibration that I could share with them. That's my duty and my responsibility is to be awake to when I feel Spirit's touch, and there it was, and I'm rubbing my stomach here because how I noticed Spirit's touch was because it made me tense. These young lads, I knew that they were going to engage with me. Why? Because we all know. They come to our doors, they knock on our door at odd times, and there they are at our doorstep, trying to force their business on us, right? And it's frustrating. And at the end of the day, like, it is the history of those encounters which made me tense, because, I don't want to be bothered, right? I don't want to be bothered. This is not me. This is my conditioning talking. And so I find when Spirit touches me, it touches me when I start feeling tense, because this is where my conditioning starts happening. Tension, when engagement happens, when life is flowing, even now, as I'm quite far along my healing journey, my loving, healing, evolving, dreaming journey, this is what I mean by it's a never-ending process. There is no end. There's no fixed state. It's an ongoing process. So here, these two sharp-dressed young Christian soldiers, it was like I could feel this is another moment. Why? Because I'm getting tense. Oh, it's making me tense. They're making me tense. Why? Because I sense historically, something I don't want, right? But what is it that I want? I want connection. I want to create. I'm a co-creator. I'm ready to create, and I reach, and I find that Spirit reaches through me. So as these two young lads came up, I decided I'm going to reach, and we're going to see what happens. And what do you know? It turned into a magical moment. In the sunshine there, by the sea, by the glitter of the sea. I talked to these two young Christian soldiers, and I helped in a small way to break their fixations and show them what you need to do to be on the devotional path, to be loving, to not be religious, but to be in a spiritual process, which is the uplifting and energetic experience. Where they go in their lives is up to them, but in a moment where I had the opportunity to meet them, that was my sharing. And whoever I meet, I don't know, I'm finding that it's the tension which tells me that Spirit is touching me. Strange, isn't it? Because that's my conditioning. And this is another thing I want to talk about today, because here I am talking to you, right? And actually this is my daily devotional practice, to be vulnerable with you, whoever you are, because I want this to be a dialogue. I want someone to come back and I want to hear, so that I can get into some kind of interaction, because I find that the interactions are where the blossoming happens. I'm a seed and I'm growing in my own life. I'm blossoming in my own life. And yet I am expanding out. I'm reaching out, because in the reaching, I'm also reached. Therefore, this is my practice. This is why it is my discipline to do this with you, because this is what my heart tells me to do. So, the touch, being touched by Spirit, it's for me, actually, it's the feeling of joy. It's lightness. I become turned on. And yet its first piece is discomfort for me, because of my terrible conditioning. My response to any kind of authenticness and vulnerableness is tension. You know what I mean? Tension. And, I rub my stomach, because, when I was in my 20s, my late 20s, when I began to really, the energies of life, when life really began to come down, when you're in your late 20s, into your 30s, life comes down on you. And if you're not ready, you're going to get crushed. And I was crushed. How I responded, I was at that time, hold on. When I'm going to talk about like trauma, right? Like the traumas that we experience from our upbringings, right? It's the world that our parents create for us. And again, I'm not trying to say this to be blameful. I'm just elaborating on what it is, because being aware of it, because all my choices were conditioned by that process. Like your parents are the world that you live in, whether you like it or not. And it's got a couple of faces, One face is how they treat you, how they treated you directly, and that's, encouragement or abuse or, whatever it was, and all that range in between, right? What they did to us has an effect, right? But the deeper and possibly more insidious level of the conditioning is a passive and ambient effect, where you are just mimicking their behavior, their mood, their attitude, the manner in which that they engage, because they're the people in your life. Your mom was the woman in your life, and your dad was the man in your life. And as a boy, like, even though my dad, he never made a relationship with me, and it was many moments of like abusive attitude towards me and the way he treated me, especially when I was very, very young. But But in the end of the day, what was most damaging was living his lifestyle. And that is what I'm describing to you, like being bothered, that negativeness. I don't want to interact. I don't want to be bothered by you. It's like, where did that come from? You know, that was my dad's game, you know? And also, and the reason I bring this up at the moment where I'm beginning to describe life coming down on you, late 20s into your 30s, when it's like you're not a child anymore, you're in the world. And at that point, how you have been raised meshes with the world in one way or another. And I began to get crushed because I was completely unready. My life was a wasteland, and I didn't realize it at the time. And although I was working and I was living the principles of being a warrior in Carlos Castaneda's system, it was attributes of warriorhood which helped me cope with my basic premise, which I could not shake, which was that I was wrong and shameful and awful, and therefore the world was wrong and shameful and awful around me. And all the precepts of warriorhood did was help me cope with that. It was a cope. All it did was become a coping mechanism. They weren't lessons which enriched me. They were coping mechanisms that I just added to the repertoire. You know, the good news is because spiritual process is open-ended, eventually it will help you. You know, you just got to keep going on with it with your unbending intent as a seeker, as someone who wants to have union, basically, to be whole, to be yourself, you know. But in my late 20s, you know, the game that I was stuck in was doing the work of 5 men. You know what I mean? Overexertion, hiding, brooding, you know, mocking. Everything was negative, isolated, inauthentic, and then the pressure to do the work of 5 people. Why? Because you're not good enough as you are, so you got to do the work of 5 people in order to just make the grade. So what happened is I began to get really bad stomach problems, you know. And of course, because this was an energy problem, because this was a psychological, psychiatric, psychic, emotion, energy problem, of course, I'd go to the doctor. The doctor thought I had an ulcer. I didn't have an ulcer. What it was like a kind of stomach pain that I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. I'd be writhing in pain in my bed for a couple of days. It was agony. And then I would have water diarrhea for 2 weeks. I'd lose sometimes 10 or 15 pounds, and then it would work its way through, and I'd be okay. I'd return to work, and then repeat, right? I began to realize it, and then at that time, insofar as I could understand what was going on, I learned to manage my energy outflow better. So I don't ever have that anymore, but I feel twinges in my stomach sometimes. And so when I'm talking about the pattern, it touches me in the different places that it manifests. And here is one of the old-fashioned places. You know, this is like, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, right? When it was down here where my conditioning caused breakdown in my body physically, right? And so what I'm saying to you is that healing journey, when you're healing your emotional problems, which I can talk to you in the terms of CBT, broken emotions, automatic thinking, schemas, all these unhealthy things which keep us locked inside. Where it lives is our bodies. It happens in our bodies. It's not just an idea. If you get caught thinking that like some kind of trauma experience, it's just an idea, you're never going to get to it. It's in your body. It's the feelings are the feelings, and how we cope with our feelings in the world is written in our bodies. And as you get older in life, it's going to eventually become illness and death. But prior to that, there's pain. And how we deal with pain is the essence of who we are, And our society just wants to vend you a bunch of things to alleviate everything without looking at what's actually happening, And so, like in my late 20s, I had that manifestation. That's why I'm rubbing my stomach here. I'm just bringing it into the present moment here because this is the essence of this process that I'm sharing with you. I'm being vulnerable in my process because I'm working towards the surface that I'm working on these days, right? And in terms of my healing journey, I'm really understanding how deeply I've been affected by my emotionally crippled dad's game. And I was living his game for most of my life in a way that I couldn't access because I couldn't get to it through the abusive ways that he treated me when I was really young. And I think lots of people have this effect where like we don't realize that we're repeating our parents' mistakes because we reject them. We reject how they treated us. We reject their bad behaviors. And therefore we've got a blind spot and we don't see how we have become these living embodiments of their shitty patterns, you know? Add another layer to it, which is, you know, another one of the reasons why I've had such a struggle in life. I'm also adopted. So I've got this, so not only did all these things happen to me, but I wasn't the product of them. I wasn't physically like them in any way. And so my differentness, I always knew that I was adopted. So therefore I always knew that I was an alien. You know what I mean? I was always an alien. Always this alien who was just allowed to be there by some kind of sufferance on their part. So all of their attitudes towards me, which were always negative, I don't really have any positive memories. You know, they tried to let me be me and let me do what I wanted to do, but they didn't understand me. They didn't connect to me. No one reached me. My mom was the only one in the household, our household of three, who made an effort, but she never knew me. You know, and that's another story. And then she was dead when I was 14, and I was left with this distant, emotionally crippled, slightly abusive, mocking character who was a million miles away inside himself. And so that's how I became. And I didn't see it because I rejected him. And so I had this blind spot where, you know, you reject something and you don't see how you're embodying it yourself, you know? So I've always been a mocker and someone who's not present and not authentic and not vulnerable, putting out way too much effort to compensate for the fact that I didn't think I was good enough. These are all his games. Where did it come from, you know? And I'm not blaming him. I'm acknowledging it inside myself in order to be in the present with you, because this is a strong healing dimension this morning, you know? Because meeting those young Christian lads, it was like, I am dead, like the work works. Do it. Work, love, heal, evolve, dream. Find yourself there and begin working, loving. By working, I mean begin utilizing your energy in the best way for you in the moment, you know? And so, and if there's something in the way, begin healing it, right? And so in that moment of those lads, I noticed the twinges began happening, right? And then the choice was mine because I'm cultivating my healing journey, right? And as a result, more and more in my life, I'm more able to just be like, fuck it, I'm just going to be here and give everything that I can give, because every moment is a chance to create union, create joy, and create community, create togetherness, you know, and I'm very capable of finding that thing in between. Like even with the Christians, even with those ideological zealots, you know, I can still find a way usually to connect with them, right? Over time, it becomes a fight. You know, like I had a colleague that I was, that was a friend of mine, sort of, but in the end, it just came down to conflict because, you know, a true Christian soldier must batter you into submission. Otherwise, he's not serving the church, right? These lads, they couldn't do that because we weren't there together over time. But also, they're younger men, and I'm an older man, and I'm devoted to the loving path. And there's nothing they can do to shake that. There's nothing the world can do to now shake my devotional intent. You know, I'm going to die this way. I'm going to die in the grace of my loving being. And who's going to change that? The world's going to come and batter me? Yeah, you can batter me, but that doesn't change that, because I have been battered. And I when I was younger, that conditioning made me listen to the lies and live a world of lies, live that wasteland of lies. And it all came down to the one lie, which was something that I created myself in response to a hostile and abusive environment, conditioning, as I've said. So I seem to be sort of circling and circling hard because, our minds are our conditioning. So when you're using your mind to communicate about your conditioning, it can be a challenge. This is why, I'm rubbing my stomach here because it's affecting me in that way. But also, and this is what I'm trying to get to in this one today, my face, actually, like being here with you forces me to be in my face because you're looking at my face. If there's anyone out there, even if you're not, I have to be thinking about my face because I'm being present with you. Vulnerableness is showing you my expression, showing you what I look like, being present, right? And what I notice is that the surface that I am right now actively still healing is all from my shoulders to the top of my head and beyond. That's where my tension is now. Yes, here's a part of it. Down in my lower abdomen, in my groin, and my adductors, and those are other places where I've definitely held that tension and that stress, and I'm working to release the tension to allow the flow to come up. This is another spot right here, and now when I do meditate or get still and ponder, the tension is all up here now, because the mockery that I endured when I was very young was all about the expressions in my face, like being present with those people just meant my parents, it was just constant abusive negativeness, and I couldn't hide how I felt, no one helped me get a hold of how I felt. I was just condemned and judged and harshly brutalized for my feelings. And so I developed so many negative patterns. A couple times ago, I told you about clench, wince, recoil. Those are like the triple gesture that I was stuck in. Clench, don't feel. Wince, because you're like expecting harshness that's going to be uncomfortable and unpleasant. And then recoil is like some kind of like withdrawal from the moment, And that's hard to describe because you're never out of the moment. You just think you are, You retreat to some inner place inside thinking that you're safe. Well, where did I learn that? You know what I mean? I learned that when I wasn't even conscious of what I was learning, Because there is no escape in that gesture. That's just a lie you're living, Trying to hide yourself in plain sight. Everyone can see who I am. Everyone can see what I'm doing. But I think that somehow I've protected myself by creating some kind of distance, remoteness, and the more I heal, the more I soothe these tension points inside myself. Like it's in my throat here, it's in my neck, it's in my face. Like I've got strong teeth, thank God I've got strong teeth, and yet they're all cracked. When I started going to the dentist to like work out this pain, I had to have a root canal over here because of the clenching, right? I got a mouth guard at night I got to put in because I'm learning to relax and stop clenching, right? But that clench, don't feel. It's a response to like feeling, period, right? It's the conditioning, right? It's not just emotional and mental. It is. But the way that we're broken inside, it has a physical presence, And speaking for someone who works closely with the people with the severe and persistent mental illness and with the crisis of addiction, severe addiction in some cases, it's like you're with someone who's a million miles away inside of themselves. They have broken from connection. They've broken from this living moment and got trapped somewhere. They got trapped in like holding on to something as their solution in addiction, something in the outer world, or holding on to something which was once a coping mechanism, ideas, thoughts, presences, whatever's going on here, but imprisons them, And so the work is to help that person be in the moment, be in their living moment, help them feel okay, even if just for a minute, and then see if there's a dimension where you can help someone proceed in a more healthy way. And so for me, as I go forward, I'm now in this place where my expression like I got extreme self-consciousness in what I look like, you know what I mean? And being out in the world, I can feel it happen. Sometimes I like to walk at night. This is another time of walking where I just get to go and be myself. I like to walk around the beach or the park at night, because in the darkness, I don't need to worry about what I look like. It sounds strange, but when I walk around people, I'm generally in a state of like being conscious of staying relaxed, because I've got such this compulsive tendency to be tight, to like tighten up, clench when it's recoiled, don't show myself, because I'm so, I mean, there is no judgment coming at me now. What I'm talking about is like remote historic experiences, karma, if you will, which are feeding this negativeness. It's sticky, you know what I mean? And the stickiness is this physical tension, right? It used to be down around here, used to be down in my lower abdomen, down in my inner thighs, like my adductors down there, all badly damaged from high impact, from obsessive exercise, which was my coping mechanism, because obsessive exercise kept the feelings at a distance. So all of my exercise in my younger years was an aspect of insanity, because it was an addictive process, and now when I'm exercising, when I'm walking, which seems shameful to be walking for exercise to my compulsive conditioned mind, right? It's the right thing to do, because when I'm walking, I'm more conscious of these patterns of tension and loosening them up. And the working surface that I'm working on right now is my face and my neck and my throat, my head, because it's physical tension. And I've got lines and seams all over my face. It's like the face I have shows you years of tension and discomfort ultimately, right? And when I get really peaceful, it's inside as well. It's like there's so many layers. There's so many layers of thinking, negative thinking, and like judgmental thinking based on the broken emotions and the ideas, And now that I'm not, I've got detachment from that process. I am freed up to like, whew, relax, not be tense, not clench, not break my teeth clenching, not disappear from my own presence, I think of that Japanese concept of losing face, your face, you lose face. To be dishonored or to be shamed is to lose face. Somehow I lost face when I was very, very young. Not only did I lose face, I learned to have no face. And actually, there's this beautiful film called Spirited Away, and this character that Miyazaki, it's a Hayao Miyazaki. It's an animated film. It's a kid's film, but very, very beautiful. He won an Academy Award. Spirited Away. Watch this film. Watch all Miyazaki's films. They're beautiful, But anyway, in this film, there's a character, one of the spirits is called No Face, and he wears a mask. And I won't give any of that away, but there's a resonance that I felt with that character, because I was a no face myself when I was younger. I acted as if I could just escape the moment, when what I was doing was missing the moment. I didn't understand that because it was unconscious. I was unconsciously living my poor old broken, emotionally crippled dad's pattern without realizing, because I'd rejected him. And I didn't see that we, as children, we are helpless imitators of the people around us. So all I did was learn the sad, tragic patterns of people who don't have energy, who don't have love, who don't know how to connect, who don't know how to live, who don't know what they're doing. And this was the prison that I lived inside of. Not only the active abuse, which sealed me in my clinch, wince, recoil. I couldn't be authentic and I couldn't be genuine, right? But also in the manner in which that I'd become this mocking presence that was never present and never able to just be myself, because no one around me was authentic either, right? So it's It's the tragedy of my life that I lived up to 2018. My life was a tragedy because I didn't see it, couldn't see it. No one could help me. No one could reach me. I don't know why. I know spirit was always there, but I wasn't reaching out. I was doing the opposite of reaching out. I was recoiling. Clinch, wince, recoil. I was on a rejection, oppositionally rejecting what was going on without realizing that I was embodying and choosing to embody exactly the negativeness that was creating the breakage to begin with. That was my tragedy. and now, since 2018, my life's a comedy because you know, because I'm laughing at them, laugh at myself, I laugh at what I'm doing. I'm not really taking it seriously anymore, you know, and I realize that, you know, all the problems in my life came down to one problem. And this is the healing journey, you know. And I've talked a lot about, you know, the emotions and the thoughts and the schemas, because I'm using the CBT there because it's very, very useful to begin to like get an awareness of your inner process, right? But unless you understand your body and how those traumas live in your body and how your body is where it all happens, right? Unless you have awareness of that, it just becomes another idea game. Just another idea game. You know, I remember a couple of times ago I brought up the dangerous topic of sexuality. You know, sexuality is a super important piece because as my sexuality began to emerge, you know, the engines of life, right? Like the powerful compulsions that nature puts in us, right? And then how we react and respond to those powerful energies inside us, hormonal energies, right? I mean, that's when all hell breaks loose, shall we say? You know, there's no coincidence that schizophrenia spectrum disorders are adolescent onset illnesses for the most part, because it's how we learn to channel and let our sex energy flow. And I mean, it's a taboo subject, right? But my sexuality became a deeply contorted expression, because if you're not present, if you're listening to, you know, how I'm talking about all this negative conditioning, suddenly all that negativeness, clinch, wince, recoil, having no face, trying to retreat within and hide in some abstracted no place, some idea space inside, you know, and not being bothered. I don't want to be bothered by things in the outside world. And then suddenly your sexuality is there, which is the nature of like, I want to find a woman and get with her. I'm speaking only as, you know, a 20th century man who is also a heterosexual man. You know, I'm like, I'm drawn to women. I just can't help it, right? And yet I had such a negative attitude towards myself that I couldn't ever be authentic and vulnerable in my process. And so, you know, my relationships were just this broken, dissipated experience, you know, and a nomadic experience as well. Because the moment connection began to flourish, I'd have to escape. No, can't have feelings, can't make connection. Boom, I'd escape to my abstracted place, hide somewhere on my own, and miss out on another possibility, another connection, you know. So really, if I look about my life as a younger man, I just, you know, I probably owe a lot of apologies. And I've apologized to some of the women I've known in more recent times, because, you know, it's hard to go back to all those old places and find those people and offer a heartfelt apology. But I do feel it, you know, to all the women I ever knew when I was a younger man. I'm sorry I couldn't be the person I am now. You know, maybe we would have never had that connection at all had I been more present in those moments, you know. So whatever happened, I hope it wasn't too bad. I didn't mean any harm. I just couldn't break out of my insanity, of my broken conditioning. And I mean that. I do mean that. And going forward, my only answer to all the mistakes I've made in life is to just not make any more mistakes. What can I say? This is what healing is. The moment you wake up, that's when your life begins. And you just put it behind you. That doesn't mean to say you just deny it. No, this is the healing journey that I'm sharing with you right now. It's feeling the love inside. The moment you're set free, the moment you're woken up, the moment your spiritual awakening happens, whatever does it, whatever creates it inside you, doesn't matter. Just be there, and don't take a backward step. Be there. I'm here. Be here. I'm here with you, right? And by talking about this process, I'm allowing my flow to come out, because I'm not allowing any tension to restrain how I'm sharing myself with you. And whether anyone ever comes here and has a dialogue with me, I hope that happens. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is how I feel when I'm on my own. I am reclaiming my solitude from this terrible, abstracted process. I'm re-inhabiting my solitude by being present with you, even though I'm acknowledging I'm not alone. It's because we're never alone. We are in a state of union with everything that's beyond our senses. It's with us right now. We're never alone. And yet we are ultimately alone, because in that oneness, when we experience that inner oneness, the yoga, this is my problem sometimes maybe with the system of yoga, is that in English it's called yoga, right? We call it yoga. And yet in Sanskrit, yoga means union. So it should be called union. It shouldn't be called yoga. It just mystifies it. It should be called union. And you can understand that whatever practice it might be, it's designed to help you feel at one. It's designed to help you to dissolve into this moment and be here completely. Be loving. This is my mantra, right? Be loving. What's in the way? Be healing. I'm healing my physical body. It's a physical process, right? It is actually a physiological, sexual process. Especially for me, I'm a real sexual person because I have a lot of energy, so it is totally sexual for me. That doesn't mean it's all got to do with sex. It just means that in order for me to be authentic is to be in my sexual place and not be ashamed of it and just be here, in the being that I am, and don't allow any self-consciousness, any tension to arise in me. Because the moment I start becoming tense, I'm actually just subtly withdrawing from the moment, in that old pattern. When the opposite is what I want union. I want to be here. And that guides me. So anything that's in the way, tension, discomfort, pain, and by discomfort, it's rich. What is discomfort? You know what I mean? To be uncomfortable here and now, There's no reason to feel discomfort, because love is all that is, loving energy, right? And yet there's so much discomfort. This is the healing, right? And then as I'm healing my wounds, and my wounds are healing, being here with you is good for me. Every time I do this, I am expanding, I am enriching, and by sharing it, it's like I'm welcoming the interaction, right? Just as I said with the Christian lads in my story of a couple days ago, I live for those experiences. What am I doing when I'm playing music? I mean, I play music as often as I can, and to play and when other people come around, it's just ecstasy to be able to share that with people, because it's feeling all right, It's like, why do I like listening to music? Because it's like someone is in just an ecstatic state, and they've got a practice. They're able to share it, and I love to feel it, And I've been given the gift that I'm also able to share it. I'm also able to feel it. I have an ecstasy tap in music, and I've always had it. And unfortunately, I was conditioned to think it was the worst thing in the world. Isn't that weird? It's weird. The one thing that was absolutely right in my life my upbringing conspired to make me most ashamed of, which is funny. It's funny when you think about it. That's what I'm saying. My life's a comedy now. Like, what was that about? What were the 47 years of my life about up to that point? It was just all about this wrongness. Oh, I don't know. It was the wrongness of tragedy, and all it was tragedy. And now it's a comedy because, what a clown. I'm still a clown. I just know it now. Then I was a clown, but no awareness, Instead, this idea that I was okay, pretending, living the lie, and living the lie of disconnection, living the lie of physical pain, living the lie of tension and discomfort, living the lie ultimately of pressure and of discomfort, But what is discomfort, In my story of those lads the other day, it was the discomfort of like, oh no, I'm going to talk to Christians about the Christian, like I created that, and I was at risk of not having that beautiful moment just through my own conditioning. Even then, still there, right? So although I got a positive story to tell because the work works and I am healing, evolving, and dreaming here in my loving being with you right here and now, I owe this to you, because whoever you are out there, whatever this becomes, and it's going to become something, even if it only becomes my own joy, bliss, ecstasy journey that I live on my own for some weird reason, well then, so be it. That is what I will do. But I feel something that's going to happen here. And I'm just excited to see what happens, much in the same way as I approached those sharply dressed young Christian clean-cut lads. I was like, all right, let's see what happens, I'm going to bring my loving presence and we're going to see what happens. And in the end of the day, as I said, I just met a couple of young men who needed to know how to do it. And that positive vibration was good for them and good for me. Healed me a little bit to not worry that they're these little Christian zealots. So be it. You're in your system. I can find a way to communicate that with you. You know what I mean? And that is the nature of what my life is about these days. Communicating the joy, the ecstasy, the union to you. And in sharing it with you, I'm living it inside myself. It's emotional, it's mental, it's psychic, it's energetic, and it's also in our bodies. It's also in our bodies. And until we can unlock those tension patterns and negative patterns that are written in our bodies, often they're going to be where our sexuality is, often, as a hint or a clue, until that begins happening, you're just going to live a tragedy. Don't live a tragedy. Be in the comedy. You know what I mean? Just be here. I'm here, and I'm waiting for you to come around. Until then, as usual, I get the feeling I've missed something or I haven't said something. I've said a lot of things, and it's as clear as I could say it. And but I'm always left feeling that I'm missing something. You know what I mean? Which is that more peace that'll keep me coming back tomorrow when I continue on with it. So the work works. And by work, I mean loving energy, tapping it, moving with it. It's a discipline. Discipline is doing your best in the moment, being your best in every moment. Shine this moment, whatever you're doing. Shine it. Shine it by being disciplined. Don't listen to your ideas. Don't listen to any kind of negativeness. Be here and make the most out of it. Get the most out of it. Give the most of yourself in every moment. Because if you're not, what are you doing? You're listening to some idea. This moment isn't important. That person is important, not important, whatever it might be, right? The secret there is in your mind, you think you're more important than what's happening, right? This is the insidious quality of that conditioning is that you're protecting yourself. It's like an old-fashioned coping protection mechanism, to trauma and upset, you know what I mean? And it imprisons you, and it has no place. It has no place in this moment. And the only way to get a grip on these things is discipline. Every moment, discipline. But it's not a heartless discipline. It is love first, being loving. This is what brings discipline. This is what gives life to the discipline, is being loving. Love this moment. Love yourself. Love the earth. Love the people you meet. Just be in love. And what you find is the way opens. So, let the way open and walk the way. Until next time, be well and keep reaching.